It's spooky season, so it's time to talk about horror, one of my favorite genres. Personally, I believe that everyone should experience at least a couple pieces of media related to horror, and here I'll talk about mostly in the context of video games since that's where I have most experience with horror, but this will mainly apply to anything else that is horror related. To start with, horror games help you overcome your fears. For me personally, that has been thalassophobia, the fear of deep water. As a little kid, I used to sometimes, even in a pool, would be suddenly struck by immense fear and anxiety that something was below me and would grab me if I didn't get out quick enough before it drags me to the bottom, even though it'd only be like at most 6 feet deep. I even used to be afraid of the oceans in Minecraft, even before the Guardians and Drowned were added, so there were literally no threats, yet my mind would still imagine all the possibilities of what could lie below in the dark. The game has mainly helped me overcome this fear is Subnautica, which, despite not technically being a horror game, I would absolutely consider it to be one. You're thrown into a planet that's almost completely water, and you must go to the deepest, darkest parts of the ocean to survive encounters with monsters of a massive scale to complete the game. It took me so many tries to complete the game, only to have to stop once I got overtaken by the fear and need to restart when I would go for another attempt months later. I finally beat the game a couple years ago, after pushing through the terror that would build inside of me at the sound of a Leviathan. Like, just listen to this roar from the Reaper Leviathan, the smallest Leviathan class creature in the game. So yeah, a creature the length of the Leaning Tower of Pisa being the smallest Leviathan stuck in a small submarine on an ocean planet is horrifying for someone with thalassophobia. But getting through that game is what I needed, and I can say with complete confidence that it has helped me overcome my fear of deep water and has greatly reduced since then, and it is now one of my favorite survival games. Another honorable mention that helped me and showed my progress overcoming this fear was Sea of Thieves, with its kraken and everything else below its very beautiful but dangerous ocean. Now don't get me wrong, I still occasionally get a small jolt of adrenaline when in deep waters, whether that's in a game or in real life, but it's very manageable and I've proven to myself that I can push through it. Speaking of adrenaline, the rush is frightening as first as the terror builds inside you, heart racing, mind jumping to every possibility of what could happen, but once you get through it, the feeling is great and it becomes a lot of fun. Playing horror games is very different from just watching a horror movie since it's interactive. You're the protagonist, the main character. You have to open the door, walk down the creepy hallway towards the creature, which gives so much more suspense and immersion that you wouldn't get in a piece of media where you could just kick back with a blanket and a bowl of popcorn. This both builds more anxiety, but also comes with a great sense of accomplishment. The feeling that you did it. You were able to overcome the fear and experience something special. It's similar to beating a difficult boss in a Souls game or getting the best time in a racing game. Feeling like you overcome a challenge, even if it's just in a video game, is still just as important as any other challenge in real life. Just because it's from a game doesn't make the feelings from it any less meaningful, and honestly that goes for all feelings that you can get from your favorite pieces of media. A slightly smaller but still important point I want to bring up is that some stories can only be told through horror. My best example of this is Soma, which I have done a playthrough and talked about on this channel before if you're interested in seeing that. But as I say there, I believe that that story could only be told through the lens of horror, given the effect that it gave to me and many others. There are so many other stories like this that can only be truly experienced through horror, so by cutting off horror just out of fear and because it's too scary, you're missing out on so many amazing stories and experiences that you might miss. Lastly, for horror games, it doesn't just have to be whatever is the most gory or psychologically terrifying. It's just whatever makes you feel fear, because everyone has a different sense of fear. Like I said earlier with Subnautica, the creatures in the deep ocean were not scary in the conventional ways of horror, and the worst parts were usually always the suspense of having to go into an area I knew was dangerous, not just the creatures or area itself once I actually got there. So find a game that seems interesting to you and that you can truly instill that feeling of dread inside of you and set a goal to push through it. Trust me, the reward is well worth it once you get through the struggles to get there. You also don't have to do it alone. You can have your friends watch or even play a multiplayer game together. You still get many of the same emotions, but it'll be easier since you're with others and you can share those emotions and have fun together, since most things are still less scary with friends, but they can still be scary and it's more enjoyable for some people. To wrap up this video, I thought I'd give a few suggestions for my personal favorite horror games other than the ones I've already mentioned in this video, to help anyone looking to either get into horror games or just to add to their growing collection. So my favorites would include Bioshock 1. The other two Bioshocks they kind of drift away a little bit more from horror. So Bioshock 1's kind of one that has some elements of it. Darkwood, which is like a top-down horror survival type game. So like a strange forest area. Iron Lung, which is a game where you're trapped inside of a little tiny submarine in a blood ocean. Pretty much all the Resident Evil games. I've not played every single one, but I've played a decent amount of them, and I do really like them. And as you can see in the background of this video is some footage of me playing Biohazard, Resident Evil Biohazard, which was Resident Evil 7, which I did on stream. And last but not least, Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion is a pretty nice and simple one that I think is a good starter one since it's not too long, and also I don't think it's too scary for most people. I hope this video has encouraged all of you to either experience horror for the first time or pick it back up if it's been a while. Either way, that is all I have for now. If you want to see me play a couple horror games myself, then head on over to Twitch where I'll be playing horror games for the rest of the month of October, which is, like I said earlier, where the background of Resident Evil Biohazard is from. But otherwise, happy Halloween, and I will see you all later.